Humans necessarily live as part of a group. Individuals do not live on their own. This is why our interest is the human society and the way this society is organized to get food, so that's the production, and the way they are organized to mate and have children, so that's the reproduction. And this infrastructure of the society reflects on the ideology. The ideology is the way people conceive their relation to the world, but mostly with themselves. This evolves into a legal system and into religion, for example. Only this interrelation can make the society work as a system. And this is this system that is of interest to us here. There's been a very wide variety of cultures throughout time and space, but this structure is what all those cultures share. And this structure does not stay still, but it evolves because of the interaction that people put among themselves. And this is what we're going to look at, and the way it changes within time. Modern science is able to trace the phylogenetic line of humans all the way to the first elementary particles. Humans appeared about 2.5 million years ago. They belong to the family of the apes, which belong to the family of the primates, that belong to the bigger family of the mammals, related to the first terrestrial animals, which are related directly to the first cell, Luca, last universal common ancestor that appeared about 3.5 billion years ago. And it went pretty fast because the Earth appeared 4.5 billion years ago. That means really the Earth possessed all the needed characteristics to hold life. And we can go all the way back to the Big Bang, 13.5 billion years ago, when the first elementary particles of matter appeared. This you can look up in much greater details on the internet or anywhere else. But our point here is to understand that humans and its characteristics, especially brain and speech, are directly derived from nature. All animals have brain cells and they all have communication. Individuals belonging to the same species have a way of communication. Plants are organic, but they do not move, so they don't need a nervous system, and therefore they don't need to bring information to a brain. So that's why plants don't have brain cells. The aim of brain cells is to accumulate a memory of the information that the nervous system brought to the brain and to react accordingly in future events. These characteristics, which can be found in animals, is among humans extremely developed. This evolutionary success of the human species is directly related to this accumulation of knowledge passed on through communication. So that's why those two elements are absolutely crucial to humans, much more than to any other species. Natural selection has provided other animals with other tools like running fast, flying, a strong jaw and claws, etc., etc. For humans, it's the possibility to pass on information among people, but most especially among generations. So that's why the accumulation makes the strength of human. This will allow us to understand how humans evolved. So that's why we need to start with this material background. The Australopithecus, around 4 million years ago, has been made very famous by the discovery of the skeleton of Lucy. in Eastern Africa. But Australopithecus is not part of the human family as a scientific species. This Homo family starts around 2.5 million years ago with Homo habilis and discovery of the first stone tools. Actually, we know that big apes use tools for different purposes. Jane Goodall, a primatologist in the 1960s, who lived in the forests of Tanzania with chimpanzees, and she saw that great apes share a lot of social characteristics with humans. But it's only with the discovery of the stone tools that we could have archaeological proof that they were using tools. The first really human characteristics come with the next subspecies of the Homo family, that is the Homo erectus. He has an upright stance on his 2 feet, which allows him to walk. He goes out of Africa and spreads in the old world. In Asia, we find him all the way to China and Indonesia and the islands of Java and Flores. And he goes to Europe, where he will end up evolving into the famous Neanderthal. But back in Africa, about 200 or 300,000 years ago, a new Homo subspecies rises. That's the Homo sapiens. That's our species. I said that Homo erectus had the most of these human characteristics. On top of being able to walk, he became carnivorous. He ate meat, and so after some time of feeding on insects and scavenging dead animals, he slowly started to hunt his own animals, and that's very important because that made a big difference in terms of cooperation between the individuals of the group. The human species is not naturally carnivorous. It doesn't have strong teeth, doesn't have high speed. It's pretty much good meat for the predators. So, in order to hunt, he has to organize himself, and he can only do it as a group, which made Erectus really human. Is the fact that by standing upright, he was able to develop a very efficient form of speech. Human society derives all its strength from the cooperation among individuals in the process of production. And it's not just a matter of hunting, it's mostly about the way the animal parts are shared among individuals when the kill is brought back to the camp. This is something that we know is very important among hunter-gatherer societies still living today or in the recent ethnographic past. The main tools that natural selection gave to humans is a big brain. But because of the size of the brain, infants could not go through the pelvis canal after 9 months of development in utero. That's why birthing had to start early, which meant that newborn infants are not ready to cope with the world. And the consequence is that for many years, humans have to be taught a lot, and humans have a very long process of education. And this also is another important part of speech capacity because cooperation is mostly about the accumulation of knowledge passed on from one generation to the next. And that mostly goes through mimetics, reproducing the patterns, the behavior of your parents, but it also goes through speech once speech is evolved enough to allow such a communication. By the end of Homo erectus species, we are left with pretty much the human as we know it. The last Homo erectus in Europe, which is the Neanderthal, lived together with the Homo sapiens species, who also got out of Africa and spread throughout the old world. They also went to Australia, where they gave the Australian Aborigines, and to the New World, probably through the Bering Strait. But one part also went to Europe, where they met the Neanderthals. And Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon, which are the archaic form of sapiens, lived together in Western Europe for maybe about 10,000 years, between 40, 30,000 years ago. And it's very interesting to have those two different human subspecies living together, probably having some form of cultural interaction because the moustérien, the tool type used at the time, and the general cultural characteristics like making graves, Shaneddar cave in northern Iraq, those seem to be passed from one species to the other. From Erectus onward, that is, in archaeological terms, the lower Paleolithic, humans get food from hunting animals and gathering plants. Usually, men hunt and women gather. Paleolithic means the Old Stone Age. So that refers to the first stone tools that were found among Homo habilis, and it's called the Old Duvan industry, and among the Homo erectus, and that's usually called the Acheulean industry. Hunter-gatherers cover the lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic, that is between 2 million years ago and about 20,000 years ago. So what do we know about those people? The archaeological traces are very difficult to interpret because we are naturally inclined to project our own way of thinking to them, which is not very scientific. The only way is to have a look at how such people live in the real life, and it's known to us from the ethnology, the hunter-gatherers.